What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to the New York Mets post-game show right here on the channel, and we are here to break down a very nice series win against the Detroit Tigers and a very nice game here as the Mets work their way to a 12-5 victory. The offense simply exploded to give Nolan McLean a very good chance at his fourth straight MLB career victory, making it 4 for 4. What an electric performance this was. The Mets offense keeps on rolling, and we'll talk about that here in just a second. But before we do, as always, make sure to smash those thumbs up buttons on this stream. I definitely appreciate it. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. If you happen to just stumble upon this channel and want more 2025 New York Mets content, this is the place to be with post-game streams, pre-game streams, and all the videos surrounding our New York Mets right here on this channel. And as always, drop those comments in the live chat. I always read everybody's comments in the live chat, and I will prop up some comments. If you have any questions as well, feel free to go ahead and drop those there. And I appreciate everyone who follows me on social media already. But if you do not, make sure to go follow me at True Mets Talk on X, Instagram, TikTok, all of that fun stuff. Did I mention that the Mets won tonight? Spam those W's, Mets fans. Let's see some W's in the chat. Let's go. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. Let's go, says D. Yes, absolutely. PAS is in the house. Pure Adrenaline Sports. Make sure to go subscribe. I'm sure everybody here already does, but great in-game live streams over there from John over there at Pure Adrenaline Sports. Make sure to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. W's, 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 W's. I love it. W's, W's, W's. It is an awesome feeling to be a New York Mets fan right now, especially with what Nolan McLean is doing and what this offense is doing. They cannot be stopped. It does not matter what the opposing pitcher or who the opposing pitcher is and what the name is on the back of their jersey. The New York Mets are going to put together competent at-bats, and we saw that from start to finish today, even in a start where Nolan McLean didn't have his best stuff early on. This is my favorite thing about Nolan McLean is that he is a warrior. He is a bulldog up on that mound. He's going to fight through it. He's going to power through it. And even after he surrendered the lead right back because Pete Alonso got things going for the Mets offense in the first inning with a solo home run, Nolan McLean went out there, walked a couple of hitters. The breaking pitch was not sharp whatsoever to start this game, but he got better progressively on the mound and he started to make in-game adjustments. And that is the bottom line of what you want to see from a rookie pitcher like Nolan McLean, who is going to be here for a very long time, by the way, is we're not expecting for him to have it, you know, right out of the gates every single time. That's just not feasible. This is the major leagues. You're going up against really talented teams like we've seen already in Nolan McLean starts. The Phillies, I know the Braves are a little bit banged up this season. The win-loss record isn't great, but that's still a talented lineup nonetheless. And now the Detroit Tigers, who are a feisty bunch as well, 1 through 9, as the booth was talking about, and as we talked about on the pregame, Nolan McLean is not only going out there and performing, he's going out there and getting it done against some pretty good competition. We're not talking about starts against the Nationals. We're not talking about a start against the Pirates or the White Sox. We're talking about good competition, good lineups. And he is showing that he has put away pitches no matter who he faces, especially with his arsenal that is comprised of 6 different pitches that he can throw at you, which makes him very unique. And that's something that even sets him apart from a guy like Jonah Tong, who really only is confident in 3 pitches, 3 of the 4 pitches that he has. Nolan McLean has 6 different pitches that he is not afraid to use on any given occasion. And this is the final line as it pertains to the box score from Nolan McLean. 6 innings pitched. Again, you take a look at the box scores for Nolan McLean. You go 5 2/3, then you go 7, then you go 8 innings against the Phillies, and now you go 6 innings. This is exactly what the New York Mets bullpen needed, and the Mets did survive a little bit of a scare there. It wasn't really a scare because it's a 12-5 victory, but the Tigers were putting and stringing hits together in that ninth inning and put up a couple of runs on the board. They chased Kevin Herget out of the game, and Ryan Stanek got the job done thereafter. But this is just beautiful. This is just beautiful. And it just seems like Carlos Mendoza has a comfort level and a sweet spot of the amount of pitches that he's willing to see from Nolan McLean. Anywhere between 90 to 95 is essentially what you're going to get from Nolan McLean. And it makes all the sense in the world. I don't think that, especially with how well he's pitching, there's no reason to extend him to 100 plus pitches per game. I'm sure if you get down the stretch of September, we'll start to see a little bit more triple digits out of him from the pitches perspective. But when you have such a large lead like the Mets did today when Herget came in, there's no reason to stretch him out in this type of ball game whatsoever. So really impressed with his stuff, especially, going from a couple of walks in that opening frame for him and giving up those 2 earned runs to give the lead back to the Tigers. And then at one point, we're talking about Nolan McLean retiring 14 hitters in a row to close out his night. And he ends up with 3 hits on the day against him with 7 strikeouts and those 3 walks as well. And usually the walks for Nolan McLean early on have not been a problem. He did in his first start give up 4 walks, but generally the command is there. And once again, I want to reiterate this point. Especially with these rookie pitchers, you saw with Jonah Tong his last outing against the Marlins. He looked a little bit jittery up there. He looked a little bit excited, even though he was smiling through it all. The nerves are a real thing. And I'm sure that's going to continue to be the case for these rookie pitchers throughout the rest of this season. That's something that doesn't really go away, especially not in your first couple of outings. It doesn't matter how successful you are. But it just seems like Nolan McLean is very even keel, and nothing can bother him up on that mound. And when he gets a big out, he's not afraid to show some emotion. He's got some emotion to him as well. So when you're talking about the makeup of a pitcher that has what it takes to be an ace in New York for the foreseeable future, we're talking about a guy that doesn't get rattled and has the composure up there to make up a viable pitcher alongside the talent that he has in his arm and in the pitches that he throws. So I'm just so impressed with Nolan McLean. I don't understand how anyone, whether you're a Mets fan or any other fan around the league, cannot be impressed by Nolan McLean. A lot of Phillies content creators, when Nolan McLean made his last start, were giving him props too. And when the other team's fan base is giving a pitcher props, he is the real deal. And Mets fans, we should be blessed to at least understand that we do have a solid foundation in this rotation again for the foreseeable future that are homegrown, so to speak. Whether that pays or plays a large role in the 2025 season or not, I think looking ahead, I hate to look ahead, but you kind of have to when you have the youth in this rotation. That's something that Mets fans should definitely feel good about moving forward in future years. So again, shout out to the chat. Keep dropping those live chats. We got Ray here saying salute CP with the W's as well. We got Caps in the chat saying Detroit has the best record in the AL. Great game from the kid. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, competent opponents, tough opponents. He's not just doing this against some scrub teams. He's doing this against quality competition. And that is the best thing that I see. And you know what? I'm actually happy. As crazy as this sounds, and there's Ken right there with the W's as well. Keep spamming the W's. I definitely appreciate it. I'm actually kind of happy we got to see some adversity that hit Nolan McLean in those early innings because it's all about how you respond. And when I talk about composure, like I just talked about, the makeup of a pitcher that can be really successful, especially in a big market, composure is what you need. And everyone in the ballpark, including Nolan McLean himself, knew that he didn't have the best stuff right away, especially with some of those curveballs and the sliders that he was throwing. He was throwing it out of the zone, and the Tigers lineup really wasn't, going after it. in the early stages of the game, and he had to switch up the game plan. The one thing that I will say that the booth was talking about, and Keith in particular was talking about, that I definitely agree with, when you take a look at the early walks that Nolan McLean surrendered, especially on those 3-2 pitches. By the way, umpire did give Nolan McLean a gift in one of those at-bats, but on a 2-2 pitch that should have ended that first inning with Nolan McLean unscathed, the umpire missed a clear strike out there that would have ended the inning. And instead, the Tigers go for 2 runs. So I do want to point that out, but you can't blame the umpire. I feel like it was a decently solid performance from the home plate umpire. I will give credit where credit's due when they deserve it. But back to my point about Keith, right? He made the point, when you don't have that much traffic on the bases, let alone nobody on the bases, and you have a 3-2 count. I think in the first 2 walks that he surrendered on 3-2 counts, he threw either a slider / curveball, something with a lot of spin, and then he decided to go with the changeup. If you have 98 in your back pocket and your fastball is really solid, throw the fastball. Throw the pitch that you have the most command with. And I think for Nolan McLean, even though he has 6 different pitches, like I just mentioned, the fastball is always going to be your best asset that you can throw over for a strike. Make him put it in play, and good things will usually happen if you're hitting your spots. That is something that moving forward, if Nolan McLean gets into those situations, that's something that he can carry over. But, when you retire 14 hitters in a row to end your night, there's not really much room for improvement beyond that point. So really, really solid performance by Nolan McLean. Just super talented. That's all we can really say about this kid right now. This is something that we can definitely talk about, Telly, here, when we talk about, to close the stream, Clay Holmes versus Casey Mize tomorrow. Victor saying this as well. McLean has been a total breath of fresh air for this pitching staff. With the amount of bullpen arms that the Mets needed to utilize last night or yesterday in the matinee win 10-8 over the Tigers in game 1. Yeah, we were talking about it on the pregame. This was a much needed performance, going 6+ innings to help save your bullpen. But the other aspect of that is, and the reason why you didn't really have to use many more bullpen arms besides Herget and Stanek in this game, is because this offense went to town on the Tigers staff today, especially Chris Paddock. And I completely forget what the Mets admin account said, but it was like, that's NL Rookie of the Month, Chris Paddock, to you, something like that, throwing a shot at Chris Paddock. And if you all don't remember, back when Chris Paddock was a rookie, and he did receive Rookie of, I think, the Month honors over Pete Alonso. No, it wasn't Rookie of the Month. It was, I think, NL Player of the Month, something like that, because obviously Pete Alonso was a rookie back in 2019. But anyways, you get my point. They had some beef there when Paddock was with the Padres. And so for that moment to come back full circle and the Mets offense to absolutely obliterate Paddock in this game when he got onto the mound was something that was just fun to see, especially with the Mets admin deciding to have some fun. Like look at this box score, ladies and gentlemen. Look at this box score. I mean, Lindor, he didn't really get involved. He takes the over. He did have a sac fly, which is good to see. He put good wood on that baseball, to left center field. Mullins takes the 0-4. He also had a sac fly. So that's 2 RBIs right there from guys that took offers. But the rest of this lineup, you have 3 guys in this lineup that had 3 hits. And then you had, 1, 2, 3 more that had multi-hit games with Terrens, Alonso, and Soto. If this isn't the type of production from this Mets lineup that we were all dreaming of maybe even a fraction that we were dreaming of. We didn't even expect the Mets to go ahead and put up, 10 runs a game, which it seems like they're doing right now, something crazy like that. But a fraction is what we were dreaming of when the Mets offense was slumping in the first couple of months of the season, especially with runners in scoring position. I will take this all day long. Juan Soto, I think, is setting the tone for this team. I think that is very evident. But one guy that I will not discount whatsoever, and I do get frustrated with him pretty frequently, He's had up and downs, especially last season going into this season, but I think right now he's really turning it around for a 3-hit game here lately as well, is Brandon Nimmo. And let me just look up the splits here for Brandon Nimmo because he definitely deserves some credit. A lot of people are talking about Juan Soto. Juan Soto is undeniable. We all know what he's doing, especially since, the month of August began and a whole month later here into early September. We expect Juan Soto to turn up. That's why the Mets paid him money. But a guy that already had and got his money with a long-term contract, Brandon Nimmo, was really one of the guys alongside Vientos that we needed to see turn this lineup around and help carry this lineup. So over the last 15 days, Nimmo's hitting .385 with a .641 slug and over 1,000 OPS. Over the last 30 days, a little bit more sample size here for you. The numbers do go down, but it's still pretty respectable with a 276 average, a 448 slug, and an 805 OPS. Brandon Nimmo, for quite some time now, going back through the past couple of weeks, 2.5 weeks, is hitting the baseball very well. And there are a lot of multi-hit games that we're seeing from Brandon Nimmo. The production is just simply there. And in addition, let's take a look at Mark Vientos here real quick and the splits there for him, because I know that he went through a little bit of a rough patch over the past couple of games, but really decided to, come back. He got a base hit in this game. He had a 10 to 11 game hit streak at one point before it ended. Let me go ahead and see here what his splits are, because it's important to get guys like Nimmo and Vientos, who are really going through it to begin this season, get them going alongside Alonso, Lindor, Soto. When we talk about an offense that is going in the right direction and is really carrying this team to victories down the stretch, it's going to take a complete 1 through 6, not just the top 3. And that's what we're getting alongside a guy like Jeff McNeil, who also had a really good day himself. Mark Vientos over the past 15 days is hitting .296 with over an 1,100 OPS, slugging .759. And over his last 30 days, he's hitting .263 with a .638 slug and a .960 OPS. I mean, just remarkable numbers for these guys that are supposed to be very impactful in the middle of this lineup, maybe being the bridge guys between the top to the bottom of the lineup. We're finally starting to see it. I think in the month of August, Vientos finished with a .278 batting average and a .988 OPS. In that month, he had 22 RBIs, which is fantastic. 8 home runs in the month of August for Vientos, which is also just, something that if the home run ball starts to accumulate, let alone the extra base hits for Vientos, this team is going to be in really good shape. And you know what? Now that I'm talking about Vientos and Nimmo, let's just give the other guy his flowers too. And I just mentioned his name in Jeff McNeil. We have to talk about Jeff McNeil, who's really having a resurgent type of season. You're talking about a season where he could finish just shy of 15 home runs. He's at 12 right now. The batting average is not typical of Jeff McNeil that we saw in years prior, but with the shift implementation from the defensive standpoint across the MLB, we're not expecting 300 plus anymore. But what needs to happen for McNeil continuously in order to be productive is hitting the ball in the gaps. And that's going to be, you're going to know if he's doing that based off of, the OPS. That's really where we want to see Jeff McNeil thrive. And anytime a guy like McNeil, who was at one point a slap singles hitter, is having a over an 800 OPS, he's at 810 right now, that is a good sign. That's a very good sign. So let's take a look at his splits. We just mentioned Nimmo's and Vientos' splits. Let me go to McNeil here. Over the last 15 days, he is hitting .302 with over 1,000 OPS, 12 RBIs, 3 home runs, 4 doubles. Jeff McNeil is also getting it done at a very, very high clip for this lineup. Very high clip. Mets last 2 days playing like a team. Yeah, and they look like they're having fun, right, Frank? Because winning is fun, ladies and gentlemen. Winning is fun. Thank you for the update with the Toronto game. Toronto is up 12-9 on the Reds going into the bottom of the ninth. And if the Reds do lose this game with this Mets win, 12-5 victory in Detroit to secure the series, then that's going to be 5 games up on the wild card. And I always feel like I'm prone to these typos here because I kind of rushed to get on here. I was doing a fantasy football draft right before this. Edwin Diaz did not get in this game. I would be very disappointed if Edwin Diaz got into this game, but instead it was Ryan Stanek who was able to close things out. So let me go ahead and change this graphic real quick. This is not going to be a super lengthy post game. I think that these types of games, there's really only so much you can say about them. I'll get into some more of the comments and we'll kind of chat here for the next 15 minutes or so. But I won't take up too much of your time because I would just be on repeat saying the same thing over and over again. I mean, when you have 17 hits in a ball game and when you keep the opposing team outside of that last inning to 2 runs or less, you are going to be winning a lot of ball games moving forward. That is the recipe for success, and that's exactly how it played out tonight in Detroit. So while this graphic loads, take a sip here. All right, that's a lot better. That's a lot better. Not to fool some of you all thinking that Stanek didn't close this game. Yeah, Ray, I see that. Drew Gilbert's having a good time recently in San Francisco. I wouldn't necessarily say he's killing it. I mean, let's take a look at the game log since we're here. He's had a couple of good games for the Giants since he went over there. Let's take a look at it. Um, yeah. So August 29th, a couple RBIs. He goes 2 for 5. That whole series actually against Baltimore, he had 5 hits in that series and 5 RBIs in total. Against the Rockies last night, he went 4 for 4, 2 RBIs. But I mean, like, I wouldn't necessarily like. I don't think those numbers really move me, so to speak. I mean, I wish him nothing but the best. If you remember in 2023, when I was talking about Mets prospects that came over to the organization, I said Drew Gilbert was my favorite. And so it makes me sad that he's not here anymore, but I wish him all the best. He's got 2 home runs as a San Francisco Giant, 9 RBIs. He has a 761 OPS with them. He's starting to figure it out, but I think that those numbers are still a little bit skewed by a handful of good games that he's had. Um, this is the bottom line, right, D? This is the bottom line. No matter how the Mets win, I don't care if it's ugly because that 10-8 victory yesterday was objectively ugly with how bad Sean Manaea's performance was. And Ryan Stanek also came in and didn't really look great. And the offense kind of carried this team again with 10 runs scored and Diaz gets the save. I don't care how this team wins at this point. Just put up wins, get as close to 90 wins as possible when it's all said and done, and just get into the playoffs. That's my mindset right now. If the Mets have to continuously win 12-5 ball games, 12-7 ball games, I'll take it all day long. Give me a W in the win column. That's what we're going to be talking about. We'll be spamming some W's, and I won't even think twice about it. I won't even think twice about it. I'll get into this here, whether I think the Mets, I think that this is a very good opportunity to have a sweep in Detroit going into tomorrow's game with Clay Holmes on the mound. Hopefully he's able to replicate anything close to what Nolan McLean was able to replicate today or put up today, I should say. And I think the offense is due for another good game because Casey Mize hasn't really been the best pitcher on the Tigers as of recent. But I'll get into that here in just a second. I do think that we can sweep, but it's all about looking at the very next game. And usually I don't like to do that until tomorrow hits, but I'll talk about it right before I end the stream. Don't worry. I see a lot of people talking about, especially Clay Holmes and the outlook of Holmes going into his next start. I'm just reading these comments. I mean, I thoroughly enjoy reading these comments. So keep the comments coming. Again, if you haven't hit the thumbs up button as well yet, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe if you're new, if you enjoy these streams. Whether you're watching live, whether you're watching on replay, doesn't matter. I thoroughly appreciate the support. It means a lot to me. It means a lot. Uh, I did have my fantasy draft though right before this, so I was kind of rushing a little bit. I did end up with Justin Jefferson at the number 5 overall pick. Saquon was taken 4th. I wanted to take Saquon number 4, but he was taken right before me, so I settled with Justin Jefferson. It should be interesting. It's a risky pick, especially with JJ McCarthy. No more Sam Darnold, but can't I feel like talent like that Justin Jefferson has, you can't really shut it down, if you're that good, no matter who the QB is. We'll see. We'll see. Let's see some more comments here. Giants are creeping up in the wild card, MEZ, but I don't really know if I don't even know if I like buy into them. I don't think I'm scared. I'm not scared of anybody behind the New York Mets. I'll just say this right now. And I've told you this. I told everybody this that's a part of these daily shows that, there's not really one team behind the New York Mets that really scare me if the Mets are taking care of business on their end. And that's been really the one thing that has been going wrong and why these teams are even still in it, compiled with them also losing and not taking advantage of the Mets losing. But the Mets control their own destiny. If the Mets don't make the playoffs, that's completely on them. And that is final, by the way. The Blue Jays did beat the Reds. The Reds actually out-hit the Blue Jays 15-12, but the Blue Jays do secure the 12-9 victory. I know Barlow had a really bad performance, and the Blue Jays offense jumped all over him in this game early and often, and they were able to secure the victory. Now the Mets are officially 5 games up in the wild card. I love it. Let's see here. Updated standings. 75-64. Did the Padres play today? That's 1.5 games back behind the Padres. They are live against the Baltimore Orioles. Got to root for the Orioles because honestly, and the Orioles are up 1-0 in the first inning. I think that is the most important thing that I'm looking at right now. Yes, the division would be awesome. The NL East would be awesome to go ahead and get. I still think that it's within reach, especially seeing Philly come up on the schedule for 4 games. The NL East is far from over. If the Mets are able to take at least 3 or 4 in that series, I will say that. That's goal number 1. But I think at the very minimum, if we're talking about the wild card, is that I think that you have to find a way to leap over the Padres and get that number 2 wild card spot. Because if things finish the way that they're set up right now, I've been very adamant about this. And if you disagree, please let me know in the live chat. But I'm very adamant, and I have been, that I would rather see the Cubs in a wild card series, best of 3, than the Padres. Something about that Padres rotation, they just, no matter how bad they are, they will always show up against the New York Mets, no matter what they've been doing. And that scares me. And so I take my chances going to Chicago and trying to take 2 of 3 there. That's just me. I appreciate you, Kenny. I appreciate you. I hope I'm putting on a good show for you all. I hope you all enjoy these conversations as much as I do, because it's not supposed to be, just me up here talking and blabbering away. I'm curious what your inputs are on this team as well. Um, mm, 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 mm. Yeah, I think you're talking about Drew Gilbert here, if I'm not mistaken. If I am mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, Ray. But I do also wish he was here, because I do think, especially with what he's doing right now, is there a world if you didn't get rid of Drew Gilbert, he could be patrolling center field for you right now? Maybe, especially with, Tyrone Taylor hitting the IL and Cedric Mullins not really being that impact bat that Stearns was hoping for when he traded for Mullins at the deadline. In an alternate universe, yes, that could definitely be a realistic possibility. But I I think, with minimal stats to support this, I think what Rodgers means for the Mets right now outweighs what Gilbert would mean for the Mets right now. And obviously the outlier here and the difference is that Drew Gilbert is a rookie clearly, and he would be under contract for the foreseeable future, and Rodgers is a free agent. But I'm talking about right now strictly. the value that best helps this team, I'll take Rogers and the bullpen, especially with how overtaxed they've been given the starting rotation woes. And that's probably a guy that San Francisco identified and was like, if you really want this bullpen piece to solidify your bullpen, you're going to need to give up something of value in return. A couple of guys in return, Uto, Tidwell, and Gilbert. It was a 3 for basically one deal. And David Stearns was committed. And we always talk about this, right? We always talk about committing to this season and not looking ahead. And that's one move where David Stearns did just that. So Padres pitching scares me too. And they did take a huge hit with Jason Adam rupturing his quad tendon. He's going to be out for the season, I would imagine. I don't think we see too many of those types of injuries, like those quad tendons, especially ruptured. But that's a big piece to their bullpen that is now on the shelf, and that happened yesterday. But still, I mean, Suarez and everybody else that's on that staff and that bullpen, it's the real deal. It's the real deal. Buto's a 2-3. Yeah, I always liked Jose Buto. I always liked Jose Buto. And you know what? Jose Buto was probably the one piece in that trade that I didn't want to give up. I mean, he was having an up and down season with the Mets objectively, and he's been really good ever since he came onto the scene for the Mets. We all know that. But that's a guy in Jose Buto, unfortunately, that would have been a very easy insurance piece to backfill the rotation and give it a shot at the rotation where he's also excelled in years prior, with the New York Mets before he got moved to a more full-time bullpen role. And that's just kind of that's the one piece that I'm like, I wish we had not given up Buto. But in the grand scheme of things, that's the package the Giants wanted at the end of the day. Yep. He has figured if you talk about figuring it out or doing well, Buto has figured it out in San Francisco. That's more of a blow, that I think about rather than what Drew Gilbert's doing over there for them. Jonathan, the super chat, I definitely appreciate it. Shout out to Jonathan, always a regular listener to these streams. Losing Winker sucks. He brought a lot to the bench. Yes, if you did miss it on the pregame, it was announced by Mike Puma of the New York Post that Jesse Winker has been shut down of all baseball activities in 2025. Mendoza basically stated that we just ran out of time. He's not going to have enough time to come back and rehab again when he is ready to start playing again. And that puts an end to his season, presumably, and that puts an end to his short-lived, I will say, Mets tenure. But what he brought to this clubhouse will always be appreciated 100%. Yeah. I just didn't have enough confidence, Jonathan, to be honest with you, that Winker would come back and bring much offensively in terms of production outside of what he brings with the vibes of the clubhouse. You know what I mean? The production was what I worried about. So, you know, I would have rather him over Jared Young, that's for sure, because we got Jared Young on this roster now, but I don't think Jared Young will be here for the foreseeable future anyways either. So, yeah, I agree. I don't think Winker had a major role on this team to begin with. Since he went down with that injury earlier this season, it's just too crowded. It's just too crowded, honestly. And if you're starting to see Jeff McNeil DHing some games, you've got Vientos as a DH option. It's just something where I don't think Winker would get consistent at bats. That's the problem. That's the problem. But if you're missing this post-game recap or you're just tuning in right now, the New York Mets are victorious and secured the series against a very talented and pesky Tigers team, 12-5. Nolan McLean was great again. The offense was superb. They were fantastic, and the offense is starting to come alive. You know what? Let's look at Juan Soto. Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at Juan Soto, because all I heard about Juan Soto was that, he's not clutch. Juan Soto is getting paid too much money to be failing consistently with runners in scoring position. He's a solo home run merchant, right? That's what we heard about Juan Soto. His defense sucks. I mean, how many times are we going to talk about his defense this season? Not much, because he's been pretty solid defensively. But with the bat, he's starting to turn it around. Not just with the overall numbers, but with the runners in scoring position numbers as well. He also did steal his 27th bag today, by the way. He's going to have a 30-30 season. First of his career with the New York Mets. And he is also pretty likely going to break the home run record, personal career record for him that he set last year with the Yankees, especially with that short porch where he hit 41. He's already at 37, adding on another home run to his tally with a solo home run in the 7th inning today. And he went back-to-back with Alonso. And Alonso, I mean, 2 home run game, premier power hitter. He's saying, show me the money. He's saying not only to the Mets, but the rest of the league, show me the money. So I'm trying to look up Juan Soto's runners and scoring position numbers here as of recent, because I did see a tweet about it a couple days ago. And now I am Juan Soto's runners and scoring position. Since August 22nd, he's hitting 750 with 3 home runs with runners in scoring position. That's since August 22nd, but he started to turn it around even before that. Okay. Juan Soto with runners in scoring position from the SNY Mets account. If this doesn't tell you everything you need to know, then I don't know what will about the season that he's having, right? Before July 29th, in 106 games, he was hitting 185 with a 700 OPS with runners in scoring position. And this tweet was made back on August 28th, so it's a little bit outdated. But, from July 29th to August 28th, he was hitting 400 with runners in scoring position, over an 1150 OPS, and just multiple RBIs in that situation. So Juan Soto is having a tremendous season. I don't care what the batting average tells you. I don't know how many times I'm going to have to say this and defend Juan Soto from a certain, select few people in this fan base that are just still not happy with whatever he's doing. And how can you not be happy? How can you not be happy? Last 30 days, he's hitting 295 with over an 1100 OPS. Last 15 days, he's batting 306 with a 714 slug and over a 1200 OPS. Ladies and gentlemen, Juan Soto's here. Juan Soto's here. He finished August with a 277 average, over 1,000 OPS. He hit 10 home runs in the month of August. He actually hit 11 back in June. 27 walks in the month of August, 22 RBIs in the month of August. And in September, his first couple of games, he's doing really well as well in this Detroit Tigers series. What else do you want? What else do you want from Juan Soto? I'm genuinely curious. What else do you want from Juan Soto? He's going to have a 100-plus RBI season as well. He's at 91 currently. He got off to a little bit of slow start with the runners in scoring position numbers, but he's really starting to turn it on, especially with the RBIs. It's 37 home runs, 92 after today RBIs, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. So he's fastly approaching 100 RBIs. So defense is great. He's at 27 stolen bases, shattering his career high of 13. The jumps that he's getting is absolutely insane. He's got caught and picked off twice this season because the types of steals that he's getting, I mean, the jumps, Antoine Richardson, I don't know what kind of magic, he's working out there on the first base line, but come on. You got to give some credit to Richardson, because not only, is Soto having a career year on the bases, everybody's getting involved. The Mets are just a very night and day different type of team on the bases and taking bags than they were a couple of years ago. And that was one of my biggest things too. I was saying, I don't think the Mets are still as good as the Brewers in terms of base running. That team is just on a different level. But, a team that has all this superstar talent with the Mets, you don't generally consider this team on paper as a speedy team. You have Jose Siri, the Jose Series of the world, Luis Angel Acuna, who got into the game today as well. Actually got a base hit, infield base hit. Cedric Mullins is speedy, acquiring him at the deadline, but you don't think of Juan Soto as a speedster. You know what I mean? Brett Beatty, who also stole a base today in this game as a speedster. But these guys that you would not expect to steal bases are doing so, and they're not afraid to do so. That is the difference, because they are able to get these just unreal jumps on these pitchers. And Keith is sitting in the broadcast booth like, why is anyone throwing over? Like, how do you continuously let this happen? I don't know the answer to that, but keep on letting it happen, because I want to see Juan Soto get to that 30-30 mark. I mean, he could steal maybe 35. I don't think he gets to 40, but I think 35 could be in his future as well if he gets, 8 more in this month. Let's look at Brett Beatty here real quick. Brett Beatty, he's also swinging a really good bat, by the way, especially in that month of August that he had. Brett Beatty's having, a good season overall. OPS is at 745, 15 plus home runs. He's hitting 254. I mean, that's not production that's going to absolutely wow you, but when you're talking about a number 9 hitter or number 8 hitter, which is where he's at right now, yeah, you're going to take that all day long. All day long. Do you notice a trend of what I'm talking about with this team from an offensive standpoint? Is that I have no complaints about this team. Luis Torrens, Francisco Alvarez goes down. He's trying to make a comeback. We don't know what kind of production we're going to get from him offensively and defensively, but Luis Torrens, as of recent, is taking full advantage of the starting catcher role. 3-run home run today in the early stages of the ball game. At that point of the game, it put the Mets up 6-2 off of the right field foul pole. Just opposite field hitting. He had 2 opposite field blue hits yesterday. He smacks one, a line drive out there for a home run, and Torrens is just competent with the bat. I don't want great production, consistent home run production from Luis Torrens. Get on base, maybe drive a baseball in the gap or 2, on a consistent basis. That's it. Hand the baton over to the next guy and flip the lineup over. And that's what he's doing so far. And it's good to see. Yeah, Brett Beatty, 8 stolen bases as well. He's probably going to have 10 stolen bases when it's all said and done. These guys that you're not expecting to steal bases are, and that's a really good thing, because it alleviates pressure from the next guy up, and it creates a situation where, you're able to, especially if you get on and nobody's out, you steal that bag, the next guy up, all he has to do is hit a ground ball, get you over to third base. Or drive you in is the better answer there, but at least move you over into a position where you're 90 feet away. Yeah, I don't doubt it. I saw a lot of discourse surrounding Juan Soto, especially over on Twitter, in the early goings, and people that gave up on him, so to speak. And I was never one of those people. Um, I think Zach and I were talking about predominantly just wait, just wait. You will see the real Juan Soto. It's inevitable that you see the real Juan Soto. And over the past month or so, we're seeing the real Juan Soto. And even before the month of August hit, the numbers that he was producing, yeah, the runners in scoring position were pretty bad, but the overall numbers still were good. Like, he was maintaining over an 850 OPS. He was still hitting home runs, albeit not with runners on base. But are we going to just, start nitpicking at the type of home runs that these players are hitting? It's all situational at the end of the day. So that's my 2 cents on Juan Soto. Am I surprised that he's doing this? No. Am I surprised that I see still Mets fans that get on him? Yeah, because it's ridiculous at this point. I'll stop talking about Juan Soto because I could talk about him for like over an hour if you can't tell. That's the bottom line, Brad. Doing it with the legs and the glove and his bat. We all expected for him to be successful with the bat, but the legs and the glove is the cherry on top. Hey, if it's that simple to get them going, Nolan McLean going back into that dugout and just shrugging his shoulders and saying, "You see, it's not so hard." I hope that would be awesome. Of course, he will never say something like that. Rookies don't do that. I guess they can learn a thing or two, right, from the rookie and what he's doing. I don't know if Brett gets to 20 home runs. I would love to see it happen, but I can see maybe 2 to 3 more in his future. I mean, if he hits 5 in the month of September, that would be awesome. First first season in general with 15 plus already, but if he can get to 20 plus, that's the type of, level of a ball player offensively that we were all expecting when Brett Beatty first came up with the power, right? The gap to gap and home run power was 15, 20 plus. If he can get to 20 plus, that's a huge win. That's a huge win for not only the Mets, but just him personally being able to carry that over and having that confidence when 2026 rolls around. So big year from Brett Beatty. I don't know. I don't think Soto gets 40-40. I think that's a little ambitious. But when you put traffic on the bases, like let's just see this one more time with the box score. When you put traffic on the bases, you draw walks. You know what I mean? Vientos drew a walk today. Mets as a team, I think they drew a couple walks, if I'm not mistaken. Stolen bases from Beatty and Soto. Moving runners over. McNeil having a day with 3 RBIs. Terens also with a 3-run home run for 3 RBIs. You know, you get people on base. This is the difference with what the Mets lineup is doing right now versus what they weren't doing before is they're stringing hits together. They're stringing hits together, right? So the Mets go down 2-1 after, the first inning where Nolan McLean kind of struggled out of the gates, and they string hits together, and Jeff McNeil is able to put him on top 3-2. But they got the bases loaded and just kept on hitting the baseball hit after hit after hit, right? And then once they do that, that's when the doubles and the home run power come into play. That's when Terens hits his home run, right? That's when Alonso and Soto go back to back after that. So it's kind of like the Mets beat you down offensively by stringing hits together. And then when it's time for the knockout blow, they will deliver it in the middle stages of the game, going into maybe the 6th or the 7th inning. And that puts stress on other teams. Like the Tigers, who we just talked about on the pregame show. If you missed it, it was a really good conversation because there's a lot of parallels with this Tigers team not having much production outside of Tariq Skubal in their starting rotation and their bullpen needing to hold things down and being overused and overtaxed. I think Ken Rosenthal or somebody put out an article stating, is the Tigers' reliance or over reliance on the bullpen something to worry about? And I think the article finished saying, no, it's not an issue. Really? You don't think it's an issue? Because everything that I've seen in this series so far from them, not that I care, but I'm just saying, leads me to believe that it is an issue. And it's been an issue for the New York Mets. So these two teams are kind of in a similar crossroads of how do we get more consistent starting pitching so that we can give the bullpen a break. And for the Mets, the answer has been Nolan McLean, at least. And for them, it's been Tariq Skubal. But, anyone's guess in the number 2, 3, 4, 5 spots, who's going to step up and be that? We're hoping that it's Jonah Tong for the foreseeable future. We're hoping that David Peterson can provide more consistency, maybe Clay Holmes as well starting tomorrow. But overall, we're relying on the young guys, which is not a bad thing. If they're cut out like that and if they're made like that, right, to shine bright on the biggest stage in the biggest month to make a playoff push, then so be it. Rely on them. Why not? It's good experience, valuable experience for future years to come. I like Mitch Voigt. I think that's a really good pick. He's electric. He's electric. When you talk about, I know Voigt's an infielder, but when you talk about energy, especially at the college level, and a guy that's like, high energy and is kind of made for a big market team like the Mets. Drew Gilbert was that before going over to San Francisco. You take a look at Drew Gilbert and what he was doing in Tennessee before he was drafted. Mitch Voigt reminds me a lot of that type of energy. He's a very energetic player. Gives a good interview too. He knows how to talk to the media, which is good. Yeah, really good stuff. Really good stuff. Love this type of win. I love this type of win because I don't need to complain about anything, really. Like, I don't need to complain about anything at all. Those are my favorite types of post games. I'm sure that's everyone's favorite type of post game. But we do have a game tomorrow. It's going to be another matinee. Clay Holmes versus Casey Mize. Really, really, really hope that Clay Holmes has it in him to put up a really good performance. The consistency is something that is still lacking from Clay Holmes objectively. And this is what we'll end this stream on. Got a 3.60 ERA, 1.31 walks and hits per innings pitched. That's fine. Last couple of starts, 5 innings, 2 earned runs, 6 1/3, 2 earned runs, 5 innings, 1 earned run. And Atlanta was a beatdown for him, 3 2/3 innings, but the Mets still somehow won that game. He gave up 5 earned runs. We're seeing consistently 5 innings pitched from Clay Holmes, but we need to see him take that next step, maybe 6+. Now, if Clay Holmes goes out there and delivers 5 competent innings of 1 or 2 earned run baseball, I still feel like the Mets bullpen, with the rest that they were given today, can go out and get the job done and lock down the sweep, hopefully, if the offense is up to the task again. But I'm talking about for the foreseeable future with him in his rotation, I'd like to see him start doing what a Nolan McLean is doing. And that starts with just being more efficient. I don't think it's a talent gap with Clay Holmes. I think it's just efficiency and location because he just starts to lose command in that 4th and 5th inning. It's kind of like Sean Manaea, but he's able to outlast Sean Manaea's performances by about an inning, which is why we're not really talking about Clay Holmes as much as we're talking about Senga and Manaea. So we need to see more consistency. I don't think Clay Holmes has been bad overall this season, but it's just hard because he hasn't provided the length all in all, and he hasn't really overcompensated. The reason why we're talking about Clay Holmes is because we would expect him to step up, and we'd want him and Peterson to step up when Senga and Manaea have been doing what they're doing. We're talking about length in games, but Clay Holmes hasn't been able to do it. And that's what's frustrating. But keeping it objective, overall numbers, I think it's been a successful transition year for him back into the starting pitching mix after being in the bullpen for the last, 6, 7 years. So let's check this out. Dolo is Pentrese is saying Holmes is probably super tired and fatigued too. Dude has surpassed his innings pitched by absurd amounts. Agreed. But the Mets knew that was going to be a thing no matter what. The Mets knew that was going to be a thing. They knew it was going to be a thing for Sean Manaea last season, and they knew the way that Stearns built this rotation, that had to be already in their mindset, at the forefront of their mind, when they made the conscious decision to bring on Clay Holmes and have the rest of the rotation be what it is. So I understand that a lot of these guys are pitching more innings than they're usually used to, particularly a guy like Clay Holmes, right? But that's not any fault of their own. But that's how the president of baseball operations built this rotation, unfortunately. And I'm sure they didn't foresee Senga and Manaea doing what they're doing, but at the end of the day, that was known that was going to happen. Let me check this out. Mike Puma, what did he tweet out? According to Dolo, there's a new tweet. Let's see here. We got a new Opta stats tweet. Nolan McLean and the Mets of the Mets is the second MLB pitcher to go 4-0 with a sub 1.50 ERA and 25 plus strikeouts over his first career starts since 1913. He's the second pitcher to do it. The other one was Fernando Valenzuela in 1981. That's some pretty good company to be in and alongside if you're Nolan McLean. So he's been that good. He's been that good. Mike Puma, sorry to get off track here. Smash the thumbs up, by the way. Subscribe to the channel. I appreciate it. I know you all probably have already done that already, but still. Mets are leaning toward, according to Mike Puma, Mets are leaning toward bringing back Nolan McLean on normal rest to pitch Sunday in Cincinnati following Jonah Tong a night earlier. That would mean Holmes, Peterson, Tong, McLean the next 4 games. So interesting. I'm trying to rationalize that one. Or trying to understand it. So okay, so you have McLean tonight, right? He just went. Holmes tomorrow. Peterson after the off day will get the ball on Friday. So they're moving David Peterson's start up because if I'm not mistaken, he was originally supposed to be pitching Saturday. Peterson, Tong, McLean. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. So where does Manaea fit into this equation? I mean, I think Senga for sure is the odd man out, but where does Manaea fit into this equation? I'm trying to see. Are they just getting rid of both of them? Are they designating Manaea to the bullpen? Sproat could be an option for Philly then. I don't know. But I like it. At least they're doing something. At least they're doing something. At least they're doing something. I like that. So that's pretty big news. And that unfortunately means that Brandon Sproat is not getting the call up after the off day, like we were kind of maybe thinking the Mets could do and be an option for the Mets. So they're delaying Brandon Sproat. That's the first thing that I take away from that. I think Senga is either going to get IL'd or maybe they just keep him on the roster and just skip his start. I mean, I don't see. Senga has 3 options. I would be shocked to see them use an option on Senga, but it's not out of the realm of possibility either if they're not going to IL him. I think Sean Manaea is going to the bullpen. I think he has to. But that's an interesting setup. That's an interesting setup. Hopefully we get more information on that. Hopefully something else comes of that. Because like even with that, there's still a lot of uncertainty. I mean, that's a 4-man rotation. You're not going to roll a 4-man rotation for the rest of September. It's not feasible. So Casey Mize tomorrow is going for the Tigers as the Mets are looking to sweep in Detroit. Casey Mize got off to a really good start. I think he was an all-star this year, actually, but he's struggled as of recent. And this is he's facing the wrong offense at the wrong time with what the Mets offense is doing. Last couple of starts from Casey Mize has been as such. 3 1/3 innings against the Athletics, giving up 5 earned runs. The Royals, he pitched 5 2/3 innings, but gave up 3 earned runs and 9 hits. Against the Twins back on August 16th, he gave up 4 earned runs over 6 1/3 innings pitched. So, 4 runs, 3 runs, 5 runs. Runs can be had against Casey Mize is what I'm gathering and what I'm deducing. And again, I don't really care what your name is and who, what your name on the back of your jersey is. This Mets offense does not care who you are. We're seeing them at their peak. Yeah, I mean, Telly, I think that would be a lot better of a situation and the better answer, but that's not what they're going to do. That's not what they're going to do. Unfortunately, Nolan McLean is going Sunday confirmed against the Reds. And this goes back into the discussion that I was having with Rob on the pregame of, would you rather set up your rotation more for, having your top guys go against the Reds or the Phillies? And I think that we both agreed against the Reds. But yeah, I'm interested if they take both Senga and Manaya out of the rotation or just one over the other. I don't know how that's gonna. It's definitely Senga because Carlos Mendoza has basically been alluding to it being Senga in his post game press conference the other day. So that's easy. That's an easy decision. But what happens to Manaya? Because if you're pushing Nolan McLean up, Manaya is also an odd man out. Maybe they're just giving both or one of those guys a break through this next turn out, but we'll have more information tomorrow about that, I'm sure. And that, yeah, I mean, this is what Michael's saying, Senga and Manaya with the control issues. It just almost seems like they're scared to attack hitters. And I will say, at least Manaya has put away stuff. Senga just looks very scared up there whenever he pitches. That's a big problem. You cannot pitch scared. And it seems like at this point, Senga's in his own head. He's kind of pitching scared. He's pitching is like, oh no, I hope I don't give up a hit here. And so what he'll do is pitch out of the zone and continue to try to work around these hitters and dangle around the zone or outside the zone. And then he'll just end up walking the ballpark, which it comes back to bite him. So you cannot pitch scared. That's where these guys can learn from a guy like Nolan McLean. You think Nolan McLean is having success because he's pitching scared? No. He's learning, and when he did make the mistakes of trying to dangle outside the zone and get chase with the swing and miss on 3-2 early in the game, he fixed that and started going after hitters because he knows that more often than not, he's going to be winning that battle between him and the hitter. I wish Senga and Manaya had that same mentality. We've seen it from them before, but not as of recent. I disagree here. I think Sproat does get the call. I think you'll be shocked. I think Sproat, it doesn't inspire the most confidence in me that it hasn't happened yet, because I think that it has been already the perfect opportunity to do so, but especially upcoming before the Red Series. But I still think we see Brandon Sproat at some point this month. I still think we see it. Mets are going to start issuing uniforms with the name temporary on the back. That's funny. I mean, it's a merry-go-round with this offense at this point. We're going to see still more moves to be had. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if we see Siri back up at some point. I don't know. It's too late for me to start thinking about all the moves that the Mets can make here. But what I will say is that I'm going out on a limb here, but I still think we see Brandon Sproat in the year 2025 in a Mets uniform. But barring any other news, I think that's going to do it here for this post game. Let me just check my feed once more. If we have any other updates, I will be updating you all tomorrow. Maybe I'll put out like a short clip, or if it's something that's like truly groundbreaking, I'll make a video about it. So if you don't have the notifications button enabled on my channel to get notified when I go live or when I drop a new video, a new short, whatever, then make sure to go ahead and do that. It'll just help you get to the Mets content faster. Giants are up 5-2 on the Rockies. Orioles are still up 1-0 against the Padres. The Mets are officially 1.5 back of the Padres for that second wild card seed. And if the Padres do lose today, it will be one game separating the two, with a series upcoming between these two teams at Citi Field. The Reds did lose 12-9 if you missed that earlier. And the Cubs did beat the Braves 4-3. So they are really commanding in a place where they're getting closer and closer to locking down that top wild card seed, which just means home field advantage in that opening round for them. All right. Yeah, that's gonna be it. I appreciate it. I appreciate everyone that was in the live chat. This was a great stream. Games like this are always great to talk about, especially with the offense and the guy that's so electric in Nolan McLean. Hit the thumbs up buttons and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. If you enjoy these post games and hanging out, talking back and forth about our New York Mets, it's a very, very fun pastime here. We're going to be doing a lot more to end the 2025 season. And hopefully, we have a lot of pregame and postgame streams in the playoffs because that is one of the most fun times that I've had on those streams last year during the playoffs. Hoping to run it back again this season, but it's up to the Mets. And as always, they control their own destiny. Don't you forget it. See you all tomorrow. Potential post or pregame potential. It's a matinee. Maybe I might put up a stream for a pregame. I know Rob's not available, so it'll be just me, but definitely catch Rob and I on the postgame after Mets Tigers game 3 tomorrow. It's your boy CP. As always, let's go Mets, and we'll see you all on the next show. Peace.